I had to separate this in two parts. YouTube only gives me 15 minutes right now. But like I said, that's mostly what these writers and artists do over places like DeviantArt and Furfiniant and So Furry. You know, they basically are given a platform to take their established characters that have become very popular with fans on DeviantArt, like myself, and they decide, hey, let's see what happens if they were fused together. And sometimes what's even more fun about this is even if you use option B or C when it comes to two characters or multiple characters fusing into one, where either both have mental control, still have separate minds and mental control over the body and all that, or the other option being they both have mental control over the body, but yet there's a separate presence, which is the presence of the combined form there. And that combined form basically having their own mind and mental control when necessary or when given the chance. What's funny about it is anytime they do merge, and let's say they allow let's say they go with the C option, where it's like, okay, those involved in the fusion still are mentally there, but they allow the combined presence, the combined mentality and mind of the new persona they become to take command, to take control. One of the unique aspects about that is how sometimes in a fan comic or in a fan fiction story, that when the fusion is near complete, that instead of saying stuff like we are now, like let's say they said now, going like we are now one or something like that, or we are now so and so, instead sometimes the story will have like I say, depending on who the writer is or the artist is, will slowly have the characters' separate words start to merge together a little bit if they feel like it. And the character will be more like when, like let's say when both, I know it sounds confusing what I'm saying and I apologize, but basically when two characters fuse together and while they're talking, where the fusion is going on, sometimes that allows the new combined presence to take a little bit of command. And when they're saying we are now so-and-so, it'll be more like I. And then all of a sudden as they're saying something like we are or we are, it starts to go to I am so-and-so, or I am one kind of deal. And in a sense, instead of saying, hey, we are now this person, the we gets replaced by I, thus allowing the combined person the combined fused person to indicate that all of them are now this one entity. And that when necessary, if most of the time, they will refer to themselves as I, as one. So, I know that sounds confusing, and I know it's been sounding confusing a little bit in these two parts, and I apologize for that, but that's basically the aspect sometimes of fusion. That's some of the intriguing things about the fusion concept, especially in artwork at places like DeviantArt, Furfiniant, and So Furry, and others. It's the fact that... Oh, I was getting some coffee there. But it's the fact that the characters, when they combine, start to refer to them, or fuse, start to refer to themselves as not we, but I. That's again a unique aspect. Another unique aspect about the fusion and what's made it popular recently in the past years, if not the past decade, at the sites that I've mentioned, if not around the internet, is it doesn't have many subcategories, but it has some. One of the categories it has, oh sorry, my thumb hit the mic there again. But one of the categories it has is something known as absorbing. Now, just like fusion itself, absorbing has been around in mass media for a long time, mostly used sometimes in animation. And sometimes the absorption is only temporary, maybe one episode, or at least for a couple of episodes or for a story arc. Again, and again, everybody would, the first anime or animation people would refer to right off the start, of course, would be Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball Z. Because you have multiple characters there that use the fusion category of absorbing to become one with whoever they absorb. And does this mean that they become a combined version of both? Not necessarily. Sometimes, depending on the situation, the fusion absorbing, or the absorbed fusion, if you will, just allows the person that absorbs the other to take on the powers sometimes, or take on the abilities of that individual. In other words, allow themselves to become stronger. A good example out of Dragon Ball Z is Cell. I think that's who it is. Perfect Cell, or Cell, if you will. And he uses his tail to suck up anybody around him that has a special ability, and thus absorbs, fuses them into him because by using that tail, he absorbs / fuses them into him, and they become part of him, or at least the powers start to become part of him. In other words, they become one with him, or in this case, the powers basically get siphoned off and become one with him. In a sense, they're kind of like trapped inside of him, but are capable of being brought back out, all depending on the situation. A good example of this is Android 18. She was absorbed / fused to him for a couple of episodes in a story arc for one season, and then during one of the final fights, he was kicked hard enough or something where he regurgitated her, and she came back out. So, again, the absorbing aspect of fusion, the absorbing category has been around. It has been. And sometimes, like I said, it's either for one episode, a few episodes, or for a story arc for that season. It's been around. Excuse me. And again, it's been seen here in the Western Hemisphere, with Western animation. Just can't think of any right now. It's been seen in the comic books. And like I mentioned in part 1, it's become very popular with fan artists and fan fiction writers at these sites that I've mentioned. DeviantArt, SoFurry, Furfinian, Fanfiction.net, Inkabunny, you name it. It's become very popular. Why? Because, it allows the creative mind of these artists and writers to really, do more with the characters than just, have them be these characters. One artist / writer in particular, Smokescale, who's known for his Treetop Inn website, did a story series. One of the story series he did was called Fuzzy Navel. And one of the characters he introduced has the same name as my second older sister, but this character was sort of like a slime girl / goo girl. That was the power she had been given in the story. But long story short, there's a scene in a chapter. Well, not Fuzzy Navel. What am I talking about? It's not Fuzzy Navel. It's is it Fuzzy Navel? Fuzzy Navel? I don't think it is. It's something. I'm trying to think. Here. It's a story, so I don't know if it's Fuzzy Navel. I know it's basically by the same person who did. Basically, Smokescale is the same person that did Fuzzy Navel. I'll put it that way. But he also did this other story as well, as far as I know. Well, not Smokescale. What am I talking about? Smokescale does kind of put the absorbing aspect of fusion into his stories in Fuzzy Navel. I'll put it that way. He does put the absorption fusion aspect in Fuzzy Navel. He does do that. You gotta watch the story to see what not watch, but you gotta read the story to see what I'm talking about. I'm sorry that I got a little confused. It's BLDR. BLDR. He did this series. I can't think of the series name right now. And like I said, he created this goo / slime girl character. It's BLDR. They created this goo girl / slime girl character that has the same name as my second oldest sister. And in one of the chapters, as I was trying to say, one of the chapters is she absorbs her two friends in her own unique way because, of course, they want to get absorbed because I guess just for fun and for a little bit of relaxation, they want to be absorbed by her. Okay? So she absorbs them, and then while they're all sleeping, she starts to take on the traits of her friends. Mostly the wings, if you will, and the tail. Mostly she gets wings or takes on one of her friend's abilities with wings and all that by gaining some wings, and her tail grows longer. So that's the unique aspect about that as well. And again, that's BLDR at So Furry that has done that story. And getting back to Smoke Scale, like I said, he does use the fusion absorbing portion in his stories as well. He basically has in his stories as well, especially with Fuzzy Navel, because he has a character that is like a living plushie doll, and later on in the story, she learns of a new ability that allows her and whoever she's around to merge into one by having the person kind of unzip her from the back, or she unzips herself, and the person steps into her, and thus they fuse together into one. Basically, the person that goes inside of her fuses together with them, becomes one. So it gets absorbed, if you will. So he does use that. I will say that. So I apologize if I made the mistake there. I apologize for that. But that shows you how popular that portion is. And like I said, people like Doodly Dude has used it. You know, people at the Morpher Manor group has used it. 93 Mickey has used it in the stories. Heck, even Grape has used it in her stories. And it's not because, they're going to become one individual. No. There's a ability she's given her Roman character that allows him to transform / fuse into one item, mostly inanimate, or even mythical kind of like creature, with his wife / love interest Cora. Give you a good example. One of the first things they fused / merged, transformed into inanimate wise was a vase. There you go. But again, it shows you how popular this art form is and has been getting over the past decade, if not the past few years. You know, I'll give you another example. You know, artists have taken established characters, like let's say recently Luna and Celestria, I think that's how you pronounce it, Celestria and Luna. One person did sort of a comic book-like sequence for 3 pages where they fused together to become Celuna or Celuna. Yeah, basically it's basically how you start pronouncing Celestria's name, but it goes Cele, and it goes into Luna. So, yeah, there you go. And it's not just them either. You know, you've had, Sally Acorn and Bunny Rabbit from the Sonic series get fused together. Heck, I requested, commissioned somebody to fuse together Amy Rose and Rouge. You've had some people do it to Sonic and Shadow. I mean, and you've had artists take characters from other shows, as if you will, and fuse them together. Yeah. You've had people take, let's say, Sarah from Transformers Animated from a few years ago, the Transformers series from a few years ago, and fuse her with Jenny from My Life as a Teenage Robot. So, there you go. But these are just things in that these. I'm gonna have to separate this into a third part.